have one and a half loads. That's about a third of the charge on it.
Take this and bring it into the.
Is there any way to move around people so I can have the selectmen on just one row? Because right now they're cluttered all over.
You can
here.
just click and drag.
Click and drag. Okay, yeah. You know this isn't my thing.
Okay.
No, it's not working, but good enough. I'll deal with it.
You can use a speaker view, Jamie, and it enlarges who's talking.
Okay. Yep.
Sometimes that helps.
Yep. Let me try that. Yeah, that does work, Kevin.
Okay.
All right. Is everybody all set to go? I think everybody's on that needs to be and everything. Does that look good, Chris? Sound good? Okay. I call the meeting to order, 5 o'clock. Today, Tuesday, January 19th, 2021. We have roll call. Selectman Howdy Goodwin,
Yeah,
Mike Manslilly,
Here.
Mackenzie Jewett,
Here.
Kevin Buck,
Here.
and myself, Jamie Thurlow, and town manager Chris Saunders, and town clerk Katie Dandurand. I know Katie's muted, but she's here. All right, adoption of agenda. Is there anything anyone would like to change on the agenda? All right, now we have approval of minutes. The minutes from December 21st, the first here.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of December 21st, 2020.
second,
Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from December 21st, 2020. Is there any discussion? And I have to do all those in favor, and we have to go Howdy,
yes,
Mike,
Yes.
Mackenzie,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
myself is yes. Now we have the minutes from December 28th, 2020.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of December 28th, 2020.
second,
Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from December 28th, 2020. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, Howdy,
yes,
Mike,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Mackenzie,
Yes.
and myself is yes. All right, and approval of warrants. I didn't get the warrant list, Chris. I forgot to mention that to you. Did you send that today or something? You're holding it up in front of you.
I sent the warrants, and I just realized as you were getting to it that I did not include this document. Are you able to see it?
Yeah, hang on just a second. I can. All right, warrant 56 for $9,059.14. Warrant 57 for $30,804.71. 58 for $9,945.07. 59 for $33,714.02. And 60 for $5,944.56. 61 for $8,931.93. 62 for $10,848.35. 63 for $10,788.09. And 64 for $69,266.60.
I make a motion to, oh. I lost that piece of paper, Chris. That was my prompt.
Yeah,
To approve warrants 56 through 64.
second,
all right, it has been moved and seconded to approve warrants 56 through 64. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, Howdy,
yes,
Mike,
Yes.
Mackenzie,
Yes.
Kevin,
yes,
and myself is yes. All right, and next is financial reports.
All right, I will be very brief tonight because I know we've got a long agenda. Feel free to ask questions if you do want more detail. The highlights on the revenue side is we took in $47,276 in motor vehicle excise taxes in the month of December. Last month I had shared with you that we were actually a little bit down. That number for this month is considerably higher than previous Decembers, and so we're way back ahead of where we expected to be at this point. So that is excellent news. I've received the full amount for our Keep Maine Healthy grant from the state. The total amount was about $30,000. You can see on the Keep Maine Healthy grant revenue line, it's about $25,000. That's because about $4,300 is receipted to the library, since they also had some COVID-19 expenses that were funded through this grant. On the expenses side, most notable change in the last month, or two of them, is installation of cameras at the town office. We had about a 10 to 15-year-old surveillance system at the town office, which has now been updated, and I'm able to view it remotely from my phone, as is the public works foreman. The video recording system was no longer working, and so that is working again. And it's doubling up as a weather cam so that we can see what's going on at the town office when we're not there. And then the solid waste bill for December was much higher than previous December's EMR bills. And so it's hard to say whether this is just a blip in the data or it might represent more people being in Tremont for the month of December than would normally be here. And that's all I got for you.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
I make a motion to accept the July through December 2020 financial reports.
second,
Been moved and seconded to accept the July through December 2020 financial reports. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, Howdy,
yes,
Mike,
Yes.
Mackenzie,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes,
and myself is yes. All right, next is under regular business. First thing is the FY22 budget preparation. We have committee and fire department requests, and the first one is the Tremont Fire Department. Would you, Keith, I see is on here. Would you like to fill us in with this, Keith? Oh, hang on, you're still muted there, Keith.
Okay.
There you are.
So one thing, we did not increase our budget. We have some carryover from expected, I guess, like everyone else, to have a lot of expenses or personnel needs during what would have been a pandemic, I guess. But that, so we tried to reflect that in this year's request. And so it's not a whole lot different. Our regular utilities and truck maintenance and operations all seem to stay in line with current years. One thing I do want to notice is that the manufacturer of the truck that we had built that we've never received yet is going to reimburse us $7,500. So that will, I assume, you guys have to decide that obviously it'll either go towards the payment of the truck, so that'll never go back into our account. And we're also going to get some service work done to our trucks as in probably equal amount of money. So we'll probably, once that does come through, we'll reflect that likely in next year's request. So
Yeah, good.
brings up the question, Keith, is there a date?
yeah, I found it's a great company. Everybody's been dealing with a lot of struggling with illnesses and delays, but I'm not the type of person to get nasty and ugly, and they've been really polite and kind, and I've been the same, but it looks like it's still February no matter what. And then probably February, it'll probably say March. So let's just say it'll be here before the town meeting. So,
Let's hope.
The one thing that I noticed was the part-time employment and on-call staff that you had for last year. And you had it on there again this year. Did you end up using people last year, using all that, or?
that was we have like 5,000 of it that we don't see getting used by the end of the year. But with volunteerism being very, on its way out the door, we're trying to use this as an option to have people stay in town or be available during during like scheduled storms. When they're planning a storm, we try to schedule someone to be on duty, but it has helped. It lets people know that they can skip up to Ellsworth or do their regular routine without feeling like they have to stay in town because someone is available. So,
yeah.
Is somebody being staffed now?
The staffing part of it is, well, we just went through a Bureau of Labor Standards thing, and there was a lot of time used to generating that stuff. Chris helped with a lot of the paperwork, but so yeah, it is being used as staffing, and our stipends. Yeah, there's quite a bit to it, but we're trying to make sure it's available there. People want to use it, but then some people, like Mackenzie, for your husband, for example, he just doesn't have time. Some of us as contractors, and we have the extra time to say we're available. So fortunately, there's a few people that have been available in town.
So it's within the fire department. You guys aren't looking outside of the fire department to hire somebody to come in and do some of this stuff, like the paperwork kind of aspect of it, or?
We'd considered people like personnel from another full-time department. I'm sure you can imagine who they are, to try to pick up the extra slack, but so taking some of the shifts. But it would be ideal to find someone that could do it full-time or commit to 1 day a week. But it's just there's available, so everybody's sharing that responsibility.
But you have money left over from last year's budget for that.
Right. So that's why our budget, 1, did not increase, and 2, we actually went down by 5,000 because that's one area that the monies went unspent. So we applied that to this coming year.
Okay, then I have one other dumb question, just so I understand. I think I do. But what's the difference between the call stipends and then the part-time stuff that you were talking about? Because it looks like it's in there like twice. So what's the?
So call stipend is chief is and the assistant chief and secretary get a set amount each year. The other personnel, we used to do it by hourly. If they came, we'd write down how many hours, and then that got complicated because whether people left at the same time or arrived at the same time. But so what we did is we basically based it on how many meetings and how many trainings you attend. And it does encourage people to, I don't know if it encourages them, but it rewards them for coming and attending on the trainings and the meetings. That's how the stipends are based on.
And that's different than the part-time person that's you want to come in and do paperwork or whatever.
Right. Yep.
Okay.
Exactly. They commit to a certain amount of time in advance, and they do what needs to be done. And believe it or not, a lot of it is when you take your reports. I have a call. It could be a 5-minute alarm call, but it takes 20 minutes to put it into the state system to report that you had a fire alarm. So someone has to sit down and physically do it.
Got it.
Now, and I understand the struggle it must be with getting volunteers, and I know we've talked about it before, but eventually I'm sure there's going to have to be some sort of a kick in there to try to get more people to be involved, and some sort of a stipend for however. It's just, I guess it's the way it is now. So
yeah, it's we're asking people to use their cell phones, their vehicles, their equipment to travel back and forth and stuff. So it kind of goes, it's a couple tanks of gas really nowadays. It's not like they're getting rich being a member.
Yeah. All right. Anybody else have any questions on this? Okay, we would need a motion if someone's comfortable doing that to accept this budget.
Okay, so before, I'll make a motion, but before I do that, on the back page, the $40,000 to $50,000 for a station, that's a different thing. That's a different. Right? Like you're requesting your budget worksheet says $90,050.
Right. So the station request is completely separate because
Okay,
Uh,
that's what I mean. Okay.
there was one year, a few years back, the town was doing many other projects and they wouldn't fit into what their scope was. So we keep it separate.
Okay. Then I don't have a problem making a motion to do the budget thing. Do we want to talk about the station thing also separately, or do we lump that all in together?
I mean, I would rather, in my own opinion, I would rather have the budget be the budget and then the station be a separate conversation, but that's, up to everyone, I guess.
I agree with that. I think it should be a separate conversation also.
Okay, then I'll make a motion to tentatively accept the budget request of the Tremont Volunteer Fire Department in the amount of $90,050.
Is that what you're requesting, Keith, or is it the 135?
Yes. Mackenzie is just talking about the.
Oh,
So it'd be the 130.
Budget?
What's
it's
that?
actually, Mackenzie, if you look at the second sheet over for it's 13750, and that includes.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, sorry, I'll amend it. 130,750.
Is that the right number, Keith?
That sounds much better to me. It does.
Okay. The sheet I'm looking at says 135,750, Mackenzie.
That's the one from
That's last year.
2020.
That was last.
Okay, I guess I don't have the new one in front of me then. Okay. So it's 130,750?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to tentatively accept the budget request of the Tremont Volunteer Fire Department in the amount of $130,750. Is there any discussion?
I'm reading 2020, 2021 budget request, 135,750 on my sheet.
If
That's
you
last
look at, hang on a second, let me just hold up this, see if I can do what Chris did earlier. I don't know if I can get it on here. This
I'm on my
one-
phone, remember?
Oh, okay, this one
I
right
can't-
here,
I can't see that.
you can't, okay.
No.
Well,
But
it says, it's dated at the top, January 14th, 2021. And,
well, this one's January 16th, 2020.
yeah, that would have been last year's.
Okay, sorry.
No, that's all right. No, we're good.
So I included last year's, it's just as a point of reference for your packet, so you can see
Okay.
the change from one year to the next. I think if you go to the way that it was originally in your packet, if you go to the previous page, it should be the current request that Keith submitted.
I see it now.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Any more conversation before we take a vote? Okay, all those in favor, Howdy,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Mackenzie,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
myself is yes. All right, so the second conversation, I guess, on here would be the allotment for I didn't even see that in this, I guess. How much were you Didn't even see that on the second sheet. I'm not sure where you're seeing that, Mackenzie, but
It's the cover page, the cover letter that you just were holding up. Look at the back of it.
yes, yeah, I get you. Request in the 40 to 50,000 range to go towards a fire department. Yeah, my thoughts on that are, I mean, we've been brought forward with some ideas lately about potential fire department sites and stuff, and I would like to see what we can get for grants or, you know, ideas and funding for that before we put any aside, I guess, is my 2 cents on it.
Still like to see an MOU too, Keith.
It'll be like the Acadia National Park. We see one every 10 years. So,
I have a question. Chris, the handouts that we got today has a lot of like fire department grant stuff that you looked into. And a lot of these grants say they're not eligible for construction or repairs of a station. So do you think, I mean, you listed off 4 or 5 here. Do you feel that there's not a lot of funding out there for fire stations?
So with the caveat that at the top of there, you know, I could spend a lifetime researching grants for public safety. So, you know, I would definitely defer to Keith's expertise on what kind of grants are out there. My first you know, hour and a half or hour to hour and a half spent researching it, I did not find a lot of grants out there for construction of a fire department.
Okay. Because I agree with Kevin, if there are grants out there, then that's maybe a way to go. But you've listed off, I don't know, 4 that say no. So that makes me a little bit nervous. Like, I'm all for looking at grants, but
Yeah. Do you know of any, Keith, that there are grants available, or any that you know that we could look into for potentially building a fire department at, you know, a new fire building at some point, or safety facility, I guess we would call it.
I have 2 ways to look at it. Either way, if we were to qualify for a grant, it would not be 100%. Likely it would be a matching grant of some sort. So I still think it's important for the town to set aside a certain amount of money. The next thing is, if you do federal grants or certain things, they always come with stipulations of some sort. And then therefore you may see that what have worked as a nice 4-bay garage suddenly is 3 or 4 times more expensive than it would have been, because there's federal money that, you know, I don't know if that makes sense to you. Just like dredging the harbor, you know, one way you can do it for a certain price, but as soon as you get money from someone else, it has to be built differently. But I guess the thing would be is to get to where we want to be and then look for the grants, because if we have our eyes on one, it's that we're always going to be chasing the ball. You know, it's going to keep moving. There may be more funding coming down the road, but I don't know. I guess I think they'd probably make a priority to a full-time staff department, or like you just mentioned, a public safety building would probably have more priority. So, but I still do think the town has to put some good faith in it and sit. I mean, I'm the opinion, if we can't afford it, then we don't need it. So I seldom look for someone else to pay for my own stuff, but that's all I have.
All right, thanks. I mean, what do you guys think? I know it's just hard we've had a few options. It feels like we need to have a total, you know, a discussion about the fire department and this potential of, you know, that we've been approached with and everything else, and kind of maybe tie this in with the conversation separately. I don't know.
I think it'd be really good to set aside some time and really discuss, you know, future plans and, you know, locations and get a little better handle on, where you're looking to go, Keith, I guess, or, not just physically, but, what the plans are, and get some kind of a picture in our head to firm it up some, I guess, is what I'm saying. Just so we understand a little more what you're looking for.
Oh, I would have to agree. I think the town as a whole would have to decide whether we're looking to do a public safety building, and sometime in the future, there may be consolidation. But either way, we are going to need to update the facility within 8 or 9 years, because the next apparatus replacement we won't have the option of juggling them. Right now, we have 3 bays for a large piece of equipment, and we strategically bought a smaller truck in 2012, so it would still fit in the bay and meet our 2030 kind of goal, that by 2030 we're going to be out. We probably won't have any more staff, but 2, or volunteers, I should say. And also by 2030, we're projecting that our station, currently the Bass Harbor station, won't work. But part of that conversation is that building that we currently own could be sold, could be traded or land swapped or some sort. So there's plenty of options, but we've got to get some funding for when we do decide to make the move. So
Yeah. What do you guys think about having the discussion? Because that's coming up on tonight's agenda for the, some property that we were talking about, and then maybe putting it on next meeting to discuss the whole, the whole big picture of it. Would that sound good to everyone or anyone? Or
Yeah, I think it would be better, and not only that, discuss it in person rather than on here. It'd be easier.
yeah.
Is there any possibility that we might be able to hammer out the memorandum of understanding that night also? Because that's been going on for a long time.
yeah, it's same understanding we've had since 1949, but I'm sure we could come up with something, because it would protect all parties. Like, the current properties are deeded to the fire department, but obviously if we were to merge or build a new station, then there's a likelihood of dissolving a department and transferring those assets. So yeah, I think it should be more of probably some type of an attorney draw up something for, so we're not running around to do this at the end if we start taking care of some of this stuff now.
Yeah, I don't think I'm the only one that's not quite sure what all the rules and restrictions are either, Keith. So I mean, even what we're operating under now, I'm not real firm on.
Well, so there's 2 different things. There's the advantage of being a private, non-profit company. We do get certain benefits, and then of course, being a municipal fire department, there's other benefits. So when we get ready to do any like grant applications, that's also something we should think of. So if we have that type of paperwork drafted ahead of time, it might make it easier. I agree with you, Kevin.
Yeah. So what if we set some time on, we'll put it on next agenda, and if there's, does that sound good to you, Keith? If we did that and go over everything basically, and see if we can't figure out if anybody else from the fire department too would like to join, any of the board of directors or whoever, then, encourage anybody who wants to voice their opinion on it, and then we'll get a good chance to talk about it.
Perfect.
Okay. Sound good with everyone else?
Sounds good to me.
I agree with that.
Yep.
Howdy, you good?
Yes,
Yeah, okay. Yep. Just want to be sure everyone's on this. Yeah.
I was shaking my head. You just didn't see
Oh, I
me.
can't see you. Yeah, you're all foggy in that picture. I can just barely see you.
My my camera must be dead.
Yeah. All right. So that's it for the fire department one. Now we move on to the library. And we have in front of us the library. And Mike, are you here to represent the
Yes.
library? Yes.
Yes, I am. Basically, what we're looking for, and I will be completely honest with you, it's a guess on our part. We're in a new facility, so some things we don't know about, things like utilities and what's going to happen there because we changed out the heating system. The library board would like to expand the hours of operation in FY22 by 6 hours, and that accounts for essentially 100% of the increase in the budget, which is 2.2% over last fiscal year. And it's just more, more hours is more people. It's that simple. I just answer any questions you might have about it or anything in general about the library, period, I guess.
Everything is obviously complete construction wise. Everything's good. Everything's running well. And
Everything's running well. We're not complete because there's certain exterior stuff like landscaping that we weren't able to finish before the weather turned on us. But we have sufficient funds in the capital reserve to pay off that. We're not going to need to tap into any other funds. In fact, I'm kind of expecting we might end up with money left over in the capital reserve.
Yep.
Once we're done. We're very close. The interior is essentially done.
Okay. So am I correct on you were requesting $81,102? No, that's not correct.
No, yes,
I'm trying to
yes. As long as you say yes, that's what we're
Yeah,
asking.
yeah, no.
No, no. And
That's your total operating fund.
unless some of the numbers have changed, we are asking for a transfer from the general fund of $61,426.03.
Okay,
That's a 2.2% increase over the previous fiscal year. But if you want to give us 81,000,
no.
I'm sure we can spend it for you.
So the 81 was on the, I guess I'm not sure where that's.
Jamie,
Oh,
can I
Yes, go ahead, Chris.
try to explain? So
Yes,
the library has revenues in addition to what the town appropriates.
yes,
And so their total budget for FY22 proposed is $81,102.
mhm,
Of that, if you look on the revenue side, there's a line that says transfer from general fund.
yes,
And that is the amount that the town appropriates from taxpayer dollars. And that's the $61,427.
mhm,
They're also expecting approximately $10,600 in revenue from book fair sales, donations, program fees, that kind of thing.
yes, yep, okay, thank you, Chris.
Yep.
And part of our what we don't know is what's COVID going to do to us. I mean, obviously, in this last fiscal year over the summer, there were no in-person events. So things like the book sales and the, white elephant sale and that sort of stuff, we just didn't do. So what we have been doing is we launched a separate fundraising effort to make up for that difference. And the patrons of the library have stepped forward and helped make up that difference for this fiscal year. We think they may do the same next year if we have the same problem, but we hope we don't.
Yep. All right, does anyone have any questions about that? All right,
I'll make a motion to tentatively accept the budget request of the Bass Harbor Memorial Library in the amount of $61,427.
Second.
it's been moved and seconded to tentatively accept the budget request of the Tremont Memorial Library or Bass Harbor Memorial Library in the amount of $61,427. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Howdy,
Yes,
Mike,
Yes.
Mackenzie,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
and myself is yes. Okay, thank you, Mike.
Again, I say this every time I sit in front of you guys, but I really mean this. Thank you for your support over the last few years. This has not been any fun for anybody, but I think we're done now. So thanks.
Thank you, and I hope so.
Oh, please.
Yeah,
All right, thank you.
yes, thanks.
Bye-bye.
All right, next is the Recreation Board. Is there anyone here, Chris, that's from the Rec Board?
Don't think so, but I
Okay,
am waiting for someone to unmute themselves, surprisingly.
yeah,
I'd be happy to sort of take you through it.
yes, if you would,
Okay.
that'd be
So-
great.
So I drafted this budget and then I met with Recreation Board Chair Jessica Bass, and she and I agreed that this was an acceptable budget. I've asked her to take it to the full rec board and I have not heard confirmation back that they approved it. So I will assume that they have not approved it. There aren't any major changes from last year's. It's down a little bit. The main reason it's down, there's a few costs that are less expensive. So the portable toilets have ended up being less expensive than originally budgeted last year, and so I've decreased the budget because of that. Part of the reason there is that I decided that the portable toilet that is at the ice skating rink is only there in the winter months now. We used to leave it there for 52 weeks a year, but I thought that the use that it was getting for trail users was just so minimal that it wasn't, a huge benefit. And I haven't heard any complaints since it's been gone. So I assume that that continues to be true, that no one misses it. And then you'll notice that their program's actual expenditures this year are zero, COVID-19. So, but otherwise there are no major changes to the rec board's budget.
Okay, thank you for summarizing that, Chris.
You're welcome.
Okay, Chris, my copy, it looks like the Harbor House numbers are kind of stretched out, but they're still. in
Yeah,
the
well, you've
total.
already approved that. So the number that I look for you guys for the rec board is the total request just for the recreation board, which in this paper in front of you is $5,748.
Okay.
Mhm.
But Harbor House is still included under the. rec-
Absolutely, yeah, no, it's just not something that the rec
That's
board
what I
has any
was-
authority over, so.
I make a motion to tentatively accept the budget request of the rec board in the amount of $5,748.
second,
It's been moved and seconded to tentatively accept the budget request of the Recreation Board in the amount of $5,748. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, Howdy,
yes,
Mike,
Yes.
Mackenzie,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
and myself is yes. All right. Moving on to the next thing on the agenda. 7B, it is a campground moratorium ordinance and campground standards. It has been brought to us from the planning board, and I think probably before I speak anymore, I'll just let Mark give us a summary of what they're asking for, and then we can discuss after.
Right, you can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Mark. Not very
Okay.
loudly, but I can just hear you.
Thank you. First of all, these are two separate issues, two separate requests, and I hope you consider them separately
Okay,
and not together. And the other thing is the agenda and the memo they're not exactly accurate. We're not asking to amend the campground standards. Okay, at this point. Okay, what we're asking for, and I hope you consider this first, is to hire an outside professional specializing in land use issues to look at both the land use ordinance and the site plan review ordinance and make recommendations and for possible revisions, okay? For years, the planning board has been coming up with changes to the ordinance and for approval at town meeting. And we started doing that this year as well. But in looking at it and in light of recent things that were called into question during the appeals board hearing, I think, and the board thinks it would be best that we hire somebody to look at the whole, both ordinances in their entirety, and somebody really familiar with land use issues, and before we go on and start sending things to the town meeting.
Okay, and that's the first thing is what you're asking for, Mark?
Right, yeah.
Yes, okay.
This
So
has
why don't we-
nothing to do with the campground moratorium.
I think we'll address this first. Is that correct? How you would like us to do it, and then we'll talk
Please.
about the other after. Yep.
Please.
All right.
I guess I'm confused. This says enact a campground moratorium ordinance is what I've got as a motion, a suggested motion in my packet.
Mike, if you were listening a minute ago, I said that.
Well, it makes it as one motion.
Yes, I understand. That's the
I mean, it's
recommended
just-
motion. I'm asking for separate motions on each one
Okay.
because they're two separate issues.
I would have to disagree on them being two separate issues because this directly calls out concerns from residential neighbors regarding the campground and inconsistencies in the land use and the site plan ordinance that relate to that. So I think before we go directly targeting one applicant with a letter like this, we make sure we've got a level playing field for everybody in this community. Because to be quite honest, I think that if I was the one that had just put an application and spent countless amounts of money and time trying to put a campground in this town, we wouldn't directly target those people, because that's what this refers to in this. And I think it's unfair to the person. It opens a legal can of worms, and I don't want to be any part of it, to be quite honest.
Mike, I don't understand, first of all, why you think we're targeting one
You-
person.
Mark,
And
it
second
says,
of all, that's the campground moratorium you're talking about. This has nothing to do with the campground moratorium.
this is one letter you wrote, Mark, and it references both of them. And it's kind of funny that they just went to appeals board a few weeks ago, and all of a sudden, we're going to try to put a moratorium in to shut anybody from reapplying. I don't buy it. And I've never, ever seen a small town like Tremont have to jump and all of a sudden change ordinances because of one application. I don't think it's fair. I think it's great that you want to change the ordinances. I think you've got months and months of planning to do on your own to present something to somebody to do these changes, but I don't think a moratorium is fair to the applicant. If you're gonna do that, you're opening a legal can of worms.
Mike,
Simple.
we're not talking about a moratorium. That's the second thing that we're going to talk
It's
about.
it's
That's
two
a
issues.
second-
It's
Mike,
two
Two
issues.
separate
guys.
issues.
They're
Guys.
tied together. They're very well tied together. There's no question in my mind that these two issues are tied together. Your site plan and your land use ordinance do not line up. I get that. And you obviously are making that aware that things do not jive between those two things. That is fine. But you have an application that's been before you that this is directly targeting, and it all blends together. In the end, it all blends
What
together.
application? We have an application before us right
You
now.
have an
Well, we don't have
application.
any applications.
You had an
actually.
application before you for Pointy Head. And if
All
that
right.
applicant were to
Hey,
reapply
Mike.
today, that's targeting
Mike.
it.
Can you please wait and let one person speak to a time? I don't want this to turn into a shouting match back and forth.
No, I
We
understand.
need this to be, you guys, everybody has their own opinion, but let's let everyone speak and get their full thoughts out, and then we can wait for a response. That would be, that's how I'd like to have it, please.
That's fine.
So what we are looking at right now is, let's get the moratorium part out. We're looking at hiring someone to come in, and please correct me if I misspeak, Mark, but
Okay.
you're looking at hiring someone to come in is what you're asking for, to check out your land use ordinance to see if there's any inconsistencies with some of your other ordinances?
The site plan review and land use ordinances
Yes.
specifically.
Yep. Yep, okay.
Yes. Make recommendations. I mean, they've been cobbled together for years.
And you don't think that this is something that you guys could handle doing as a board? Or do you not feel comfortable with it, or is it dealing with the inconsistencies as far as correcting whatever changes that you feel like need to be changed in that?
I don't think the board has the time or the expertise to look over the both ordinances and consider all the legal ramifications.
Okay.
Could I try summing up what you're looking for, Mark? Just to
Sure.
make it's clear to me too. You're looking for us to hire an outside expert to basically review our land use ordinance and our site plan review ordinance, make sure they're consistent, and try to flag any deficiencies or inconsistencies and make recommendations. Does that sound correct?
Correct.
Okay. That's what I thought.
I see
Mike.
Jesse is here. He's certainly welcome to weigh in.
I think Mike just wanted to say something.
So I'm fine with hiring an outside expert for this as far as that goes. But I think you have to give something to present to them. And honestly, usually when a planning board comes up with these changes, at least a small town, like when I was in Southwest Harbor, for example, we would come up with ordinance changes. We would present them. Our town manager would take them back to the state, and they would tell us if they worked or if they didn't. I just see that, we can't spend money on engineering roads, and all of a sudden we're going to start spending money on reviewing a very complex document. Well, what parts of it do we want to review? Do we want to review all of it? Do we want to spend $5,000, $10,000, 20? Where's the ball stop rolling with this? I just think that this document's very melded together with two things. It's referencing two different issues. Your issue with campgrounds and the concerns of residential abutters, and your concerns with your land use and your site plan ordinance. And to me, that is a biased document. So I think we're really walking a fine line with this one, and we got to be careful. I really would rather, take some time, table it, get some more information. But at this time, I'm not going to vote to do anything of this sort.
I appreciate your concern about costs. This is a recommendation from the full planning board. I'm bringing it to you guys, presenting it to you guys to consider.
And Jesse, is there anything that you would like to add to this, or do you have nothing to any further than that?
What I will add is the issue with the two ordinances is a separate issue, as Mark described. It's a general issue between site plan and land use. They're missing, to put it plainly, they're missing a link to each other, which makes the process of approving an application more tedious at this point in time. They'd have to review both of them separately. They can't rely on one ordinance and make references to the other ordinance without a integration clause, as the lawyer puts it. So that does need to be addressed sooner than later. It would be best probably to have an attorney or a land use expert review that change to make sure it covers everything it needs to cover and takes care of all the issues around that. Whether or not you want to go through page by page with an attorney or review, that would be a separate discussion. I think the discussion of linking the two is the more vital change that needs to take place sooner than later.
Jamie, if I may.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Jesse. Chris.
I just want to echo what Jesse said. I have spoken with the town attorney, and we agree there ought to be an integration clause, and it's a relatively straightforward process of adding that. It's not a, that adding that clause by itself is not a huge change. in terms of the number of hours of attorney's work it would take to put that in. If we're talking about as Jesse put it, a page by page review of the two ordinances to ensure, 100% compatibility and consistency, that would be a considerably greater task.
Okay, so once again, if we clarify, I just want to be sure that we're clear about this. So you're looking for to have someone look into, what would you describe it as, Chris? The integration of the site plan review and the land use ordinance?
Well, so the integration clause is something that, as both Jesse and Mark have said, every year the planning board makes edits to the land use ordinance, which then go to town meeting and are, in recent years have always passed pretty easily. And so I anticipated that the planning board would do a similar process for the addition of an integration clause, and it could be in either the site plan ordinance or the land use ordinance, just to connect them and make specific reference to the other. And I don't want to put the cart before the horse and assume that the planning board will approve or that the select board will approve the inclusion of that integration clause in that document, but that would be my recommendation to do so. And you don't need to do anything tonight in order to push that process forward. And I'm speaking very narrowly of just the integration clause. If you wanted to take, if you were interested as a board in hiring, as Mark is requesting, an outside expert to do a comprehensive review, I would ask for your action tonight to point me in that direction.
Yes, Mark.
Yeah, the board realizes the integration clause is necessary, but I think the intent of our request is to do a thorough looking at all the ordinances page by page. And certainly that if we did hire somebody, they would work with the planning board to help develop any potential changes.
Well, from what I've heard and the complaints that have been showing up, there obviously are some inconsistencies and things that need to be defined better. And I think having someone go through it and review it and make some recommendations would be a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see any issue with having someone look at it for those reasons. What you just listed, I think that everything should be consistent and should reflect each other. What about Howdy? Not to put you on the spot, but you and Mackenzie have any thoughts on it?
I agree. I mean, if the planning board is a little uncomfortable doing it on their own, let's get somebody to come in and get through it and get it done right. I mean, we certainly want to encourage business in our town. I don't want to discourage anybody's business in town. I also want to make sure that it's right for everybody. So I think it's a good idea.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Oh, yes, go ahead, Greg.
As somebody, and only specific to the ordinance and what Mark has said, the ordinance is actually in two parts. Much of it is duplicate, but they have tiny threads of different language that makes, I think, interpretation difficult, not even for the planning board, but an applicant. Would like to say that, the land use is voted on the ordinance once a year. So it's like an open book test that's been published. The way it's set up now, it's very difficult to make apples to apples from one to the other. I just, from our side of perspective, one who makes applications many times, the splitting of them is highly unusual in many towns we work in. Even the term of having a site plan review ordinance and a land use ordinance, the applicability of each is somewhat questionable. So integration to whatever the standards are, and I'm not speaking to changing the standards, but some consistency throughout that gives the board better ways to make decisions and applicants better ways to set their expectations is I think is beneficial. And I think what Mark's requesting is obviously, as Mike probably hinted to, it's absolutely pretty much the norm to have somebody who's used to handling ordinances look at it from a policy perspective from town to town. So anyways, that's just my 2 cents from the outside.
Okay, thank you, Greg.
Yep.
Yes, Mike.
I think it is great that they want to perfect this stuff, but I also believe that, because the second issue we're dealing with is the moratorium, that we be careful in how we handle this and how quickly we handle this, because there may be application, it says there's an application January 12th, pre-application conference with an applicant for a campground. And one, there's one that has been rejected. And I just feel that if we're gonna go into this, we should probably give the planning board a couple meetings to really come up with something to present to us to say, this is what we want to see changed. If there's other things that are in the land use ordinance, so that we're getting it all in one shot, and we're not, just dealing with that one issue.
Yes, John.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Let me just kind of introduce myself first. My name is John Pottle. I'm an attorney. I'm here on behalf of the Hopkins, in part because of obviously one of the agenda items talks about a moratorium. So as Mike was mentioning earlier, there are some legal aspects of it. Because the conversation is talking about, updates to the land use ordinance or the town's ordinance, I thought I'd just offer a few comments or perspectives to kind of echo what Greg was saying. I often see this from both sides of the coin, as they might say. I do a lot of work for landowners on the private side. I also am municipal counsel for a lot of municipalities, so I can certainly appreciate. There's no ordinance that will ever be perfect. They're always living documents. They're always going to be updated and amended, just as I'm sure the town has experienced. There often will be overlaps. You'll see a stormwater provision in one area as you might see it in another one. So there's always some tidying up and cleanup that can be done over time. I think, from my perspective, the concern is I'm not necessarily convinced that there's a complete disconnect between the request for a moratorium and a rewriting of the ordinances. I hope that is the case. But the concern that I would have is that, just like any property owner would have, is you got the rules of the game, and if they change midstream, there's a real fairness. There's some real legal issues that are presented there. So I just want to make that known. Is it a good idea to look at the ordinances and update that progressively in the future? Of course. Sometimes that may involve a professional planner. Sometimes it doesn't. It really depends on the nature of it. But I just want to make clear that property owners, just like the town, as you go through your own budget process, for example, predictability and certainty are really key, particularly during these times where it's very volatile out there, as I'm sure we all can appreciate. So as to this item, as it may impact my client, I just want to make sure that it's clear that, we're here because we want to make sure that the rules of the game don't change for Mr. Hopkins. And that relates in part to the moratorium request as well. But I just want to introduce myself, because I'm probably a fresh face for a lot of folks here. So you're not surprised at who I am. But two, just offer those comments on the general amendment process that the board is considering per the planning board's request, but also to make known that, we're concerned about this discussion of a moratorium that we're about to have, and we just want to make sure we get heard on that as well. So appreciate that.
Yes, thank you. And my take is on this, maybe I'm misunderstanding, but in my opinion, I definitely don't want to discourage any business. What from what Mark has said what I understand of it, would be looking into this, and this would be a change over time. This is, something that, maybe Mark, you're correcting me on that.
No, I'm not correcting you. I just wanted to point out, I don't anticipate major changes coming from this. I think, we have a comprehensive plan that we're developing, and major changes may come out of that. I think we just want somebody to look at the ordinances as they exist now to, and tie things together. Greg, I think, made some important points about the inconsistencies. So.
Okay, and I have Mike, and then James, I'll get to you as soon as I'm done with Mike here.
And I'm fine with addressing, those concerns with the ordinance and the site plan and how they meld together. I just think for Mr. Pottle's clients and Miss Pointy Head's Mrs. Brogdon there, to be fair to them, we shouldn't rush. I mean, yes, we can do these ordinance changes and start working on that and brainstorming, come up with ideas ourselves, or the planning board, or even someone hired out. But to say we're going to do that, and that's why we're going to have a moratorium, I think is really, really unfair to any application before us, because this letter that I received as a handout directly references, it starts with the moratorium on campgrounds. That's what it says. And it references neighbors' concerns. So this to me looks like it's pointing out a certain group of individuals individually. Yes, we have ordinance issues. We know that. But to say that, we're going to act a moratorium because we have residential, we got residential neighborhood and people are concerned. It says crafting new standards for campgrounds would address issues that have arisen to maintain a better balance between commercial and residential interests. Campgrounds are permitted in the residential business zone. Objections and concerns have come from residential neighbors to these projects. That to me is very, very one-sided. And I think that if we're going to do any moratorium, it shouldn't come right now. Because
do you understand the moratorium needs to be approved by town meeting vote?
I understand that we can have a special town meeting for that as well.
Well, we're looking at well over a month out.
Well, I'm not so sure, as you might not have a conflict on this anyway, Kevin. So,
well, thank you for that, Mike. But
you're a direct abutter, and it's mentioning you're a direct abutter to one of these campground projects.
Thank you for that, Mike. Thank you. I appreciate you pointing that out.
Protecting your interest, I'm sure.
All right, so I think, Mike, we need to drop the conversation about the moratorium. This is getting mixed into this conversation. We're not talking about the moratorium at this time. Just to be clear, this is something different. We'll have that conversation in just a second, but this is not the discussion about the moratorium. James, do you have anything you'd like to?
Thank you, Jamie. It's been a while, and it's good to see you. I just wanted to introduce myself to everybody that doesn't know. We were at the meeting on the 12th for the preliminary. So of course we were concerned, but I just wanted to kind of give the selectmen and everybody here kind of an idea of what we're trying to do and what we're proposing. For those who don't know, I was born and raised here, grew up on Kellytown, and I'm really trying to get back to the island and to work this campground full time. I want my kids, who are going to be school age, they're 3 now. So I'm trying to get them back where they can grow up, where I grew up, and bring them home. And so when things like these and these letters come out, it makes us a little nervous. We've taken, my life savings and pumped it into a project that we care, deeply about. I'm from the neighborhood. My whole entire family is from the neighborhood. So we want to do things the right way. We want to do things that the neighbors will be proud of, and we are open to anything that they want to suggest, and we're happy to make changes or do things differently that'll appease the neighbors. But we really it's important to us to get this going, and we just want a fair shake at doing so. And so when the memorandum letter came out or proposed, it made us a little nervous, and we just wanted to sit here and make sure we were moving forward in the best way possible.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, James. All right. So what does anybody else on the board? I'd like to have just the board members speak for a minute. Have any thoughts on looking into having someone from the outside just come in and looking at the differences in these ordinances. And this would be something that would happen over time, I guess, or as quickly as you could get someone. Mackenzie, and then Mike. Sorry, I just saw Mike too.
How quickly, if we decided tonight that we want to hire an outside professional person to come in and work on this campground thing right now, not so much the whole thing, but the campground thing right now, how quickly can we make that happen? Like, can we do that now, I guess, is my question.
Chris, could you answer that as far as how quick it is to get?
I don't want the campgrounds to, I mean, camping season's coming up in a few months. You know, they might want to get their projects going, and I don't want to. Can we do this now?
Yeah, but I don't think, from what Mark is saying, I don't believe that this is targeting the campgrounds. What he's saying is inconsistencies in the land use ordinance as a general. Am I correct, Mark, on that? You're muted at the current time, so.
Yeah, that's correct. And also any changes have to be approved at the town meeting.
Okay.
So this doesn't happen right away.
Yeah.
Okay, so I shouldn't say campgrounds. It's just in general. It's the whole.
Just in general, yes.
Okay, so we would have to wait till May. Is that true, Chris?
Unless you had a special town meeting, but probably wait till May.
Yeah.
I've lost. So you're asking me if you would have to wait till town meeting to approve changes to the land use ordinance?
Well, I know that, yes.
Yeah.
But it can't be done any quicker than that. Like, I know a special town meeting is an option, but probably not a good option.
I would strongly discourage a special town meeting right now.
But what he's saying is just to look into hiring someone to come in and look at this. This wouldn't change anything currently going on, I don't believe.
So I have a couple thoughts on that, and it's totally up to the board. So I'm just going to try to present some options for how you could go about this. So our town attorney is appointed by you as the town attorney because you trust his expertise in town business, and his personal, his own area of expertise is land use law. And so my first thought is we could skip any kind of competitive bidding process and simply use the town attorney, who has been duly appointed by you as the town attorney. If you would prefer not to use the town attorney, then I would assume that this would cost more than $5,000 and probably more than $15,000 if it's a very thorough review. And that would require a competitive bid process, which would take a month to a month and a half. And I think at that point, you'd be hard pressed to even have all of these changes incorporated in time for the May 2021 town meeting.
Okay, so if we had the attorney do it, you think it would be much less expensive as well, just to have him look into that one?
I didn't say less expensive, but it would be faster. But I do think that what would happen if you use the town attorney is the town attorney could meet with the planning board and go through the specific areas of concern. And if it starts to go in one direction, the planning board can say that's not actually where we're looking at going, and sort of steer the attorney back to what they're interested in focusing in on. And so the costs are really determined by the planning board and by you, the select board, in terms of the scope of the work that you want done.
Okay, thanks. Mike.
My question is, it's actually a two-part question, but why wouldn't we use the state's review process for this? That's how I've always thought that it was done. We'd write something, the state would, the town manager would review it, and the state would review it, either accept it or deny it. If it's something that simple, at least that one part of it, why don't we do that? Or have our town engineer craft it for our review and the planning board's review. And then we submit it to the state, see if they give it the stamp of approval.
So a few thoughts on that. One, what the state does, and Jesse has a good sense, may be able to weigh in here as well, is they really just determine whether your land use standards are meeting the minimum standards set by the state. So they set minimum standards for example, shoreland zoning or resource protection. And so our resource protection standards must at least be as stringent as theirs. They can be more stringent, but they have to be at a minimum. The state does not provide legal advice or political advice on the, what the size of a campsite should be, for example. That's something that's really determined by you. And I see Jesse nodding. Is that an accurate statement, Jesse?
Yes, the state department that reviews ordinances would be the DEP. So they only review it for compliance with their shoreland zoning standards. So any ordinance that doesn't contain shoreland zoning, they don't even review because they don't frankly care what it says.
Yeah. And so as far as asking me as the manager to write it, I'm not a lawyer and I would be very cautious about writing legal language that would have effects, years down the road when that's not my area of expertise.
Would the town engineer be able to write something like that for our lawyer to approve, where they have, a lot of experience with the land use ordinance in our town and other towns?
Fortunately, we do have the town engineer here. I would just also caution that the town engineer is representing one of the applicants. And so obviously there's a conflict of interest there. And so I don't know exactly how to navigate that.
I'd like to comment maybe on it. I think so first of all, the land use ordinance is written in support of the comprehensive plan. Like, it's a set of rules that are supporting what was set up as a draft of drawing information out of the community. So the reflection of the land use actually has to be somebody needs to mute in there. The ordinance has to still reflect the comprehensive plan and the desire of the people. So in a box, I'm just going to say, probably, unless it's a specific linkage, my own opinion is that land use is definitely by planning and land use consultants. It's not an engineer's job. And I don't think I've ever seen a land use that's been crafted or rewritten by an attorney. And frankly, I might be frightened if I saw one. No offense there, Mr. Pottle, but I don't know how that would work. But I think it's a planning consultant's job all the way. And I think it's actually got to be legally bound to the people through the comprehensive plan, because the comprehensive plan rules and where it targets the land use is the rules that support it. So that's how it works.
Okay, thank you, Greg.
For whatever it's worth, from a legal perspective, and I take no offense, Greg, whenever I'm reviewing ordinances, they're usually already been drafted and they're asking for the attorney review. I mean, there are instances where I have been the original drafter in some instances, but I'd say the majority is usually I'm looking at something that's already been drafted. That doesn't mean you can't do it other ways, but to the extent that's even helpful as a point of reference.
And I'm sorry if I was being unclear. That is what I understood that we were doing, because we do have a land use ordinance already. And so it would be having the attorney review the current land use ordinance.
I make a motion to request the town manager to have the town attorney and the planning board work together to try to identify any inconsistencies and deficiencies in the land use and site review ordinances.
I'll second that. It's been moved and seconded to have the town manager contact the town attorney, correct me, Kevin, if I don't read this correctly, to look into any inconsistencies in the land use and site plan review. Would that be correct?
To work with the planning board doing that.
To work with the planning board as doing this. Okay. Is there any discussion?
I'm not gonna vote for this because I didn't get the rest of this document till late today. I mean, today I was gone this weekend and I got the remaining I only got one side of this document. So I didn't even really, until this afternoon, I didn't even really get a chance to really thoroughly review this. So I'm just gonna be upfront with you. I don't think we had adequate time to discuss this or even to look at it. I'm sure all of you only got one page. What's that?
But there's not much on the back of the page to, I
Well,
mean, all the
it's,
important stuff's on the front of the page.
well, it talks about the ordinances and I just don't, I feel like we should rush something like this through. I haven't had a chance to discuss this or even look through this very deep because of that.
I think it should be talked over more too, myself. Before we rush right into any of this.
I just don't see as this is gonna harm anyone, looking, correcting some of this stuff. I don't see where it would harm anyone, an applicant or anything, from my point of view. So,
I understand that, I mean, they've got some issues there, but I think we need more time to really think about this, as a board. Anything that's a change, is gonna have to be, brought before the voters, and if I'm gonna be a part of any vote, I wanna have time to consider this. I'm not gonna get the last paragraph on the day we review it. I'm just not, of a document that's presented from their planning board to us, written by Mark Good. So I don't feel that, it's time to rush into it.
all right. I guess it's time to take a vote. All those in favor, Howdy,
No,
Mike,
No,
Mackenzie,
Yes,
Kevin,
Yes,
and myself is yes. All right, moving
Thank you,
on
folks.
to the next thing, you wanted to separate this, Mark, so,
Because it is a separate issue, yes.
yes, okay, so how exactly, so that I'm gonna write this down so we know exactly what we're talking about. What would you, call the second issue?
A request to enact a moratorium on campgrounds until standards can be changed. We can discuss properly changes in the standards, which we find to be inadequate. And this is not targeting, like Mike has said, one specific person. We've been aware for quite a while that our campground standards are almost non-existent. They're inadequate, and any moratorium, of course, will have to be approved at town meeting. It's not going to happen overnight. There's a whole public hearing process. And I don't, as Greg said at our last meeting, I think he's going to submit an application for the Acadia Woods or the Hopkins campground for our next meeting. And anything else, it's going to be like 6 months or so, right? 5 months. If a moratorium were enacted.
All right, discussion on a moratorium. Mike,
I don't think we should open a legal can of worms with this. This references a campground issue that went to appeals board in particular. It also talks about Acadia Wilderness Campground directly in the same paragraph that they're mentioning moratorium. And I think this could be taken as a document that is directly targeting two people that are trying to put campgrounds in. And I don't think that that's the way to go about this, really. I think if we're going to do a moratorium, let's wait. I know it can be a special town meeting or the town meeting in May, but I don't think it's something we got to immediately jump on right now. We have time to work on our ordinances that you just voted in. So let's work on that and then see where things go. But to say we're going to have a moratorium all of a sudden because a couple campgrounds applied in this town is, to me, it's not fair to anybody. The applicant that applied from Pointy Head, she might want to reapply. Who knows? There's an applicant for Acadia Wilderness. They might have some modifications to their plan or changes. This is bad timing on their part, and I don't think it's fair. And we're gonna open a big legal can of worms, I think. And we're just setting grounds for appeal if anybody does have an application pending.
okay. Anybody else on the board like to comment anything before we go out to everyone else? Hang on just a second, Jeff. I'll get to you in just a sec. I just want to go through the board and then Then we'll go to everyone outside.
I'm really curious if either of the applicants is gonna have trouble putting their applications in before a May town meeting. I mean, it seems like that's a pretty reasonable time frame, and if that's the case, any moratorium we're discussing won't affect them. This is to work out plans. One of the things that bothers me about the campground ordinance or the campground restrictions, there's no minimum size for a campground. And not to single out anyone, but I know there's been one recently approved on a little over 1.5 acres, and to me, that's a really small overall footprint for a campground. I mean, to me, that's just like one deficiency. But I honestly think the people that Mike's so concerned about will probably have applications in before any moratorium would affect them at all.
All right, Jeff.
Jamie, thank you. I've kept my powder dry here tonight, and I'll also try to be brief now that you've called on me. I think I have about 3 issues, and I lived through the campground process all the way through to the appeals board, and was the agent for Madeline Brogdon, and I'm very familiar with what happened along the way. And the final night of the appeals board, it became very apparent that you had a disconnect in your 2 ordinances, that the site plan ordinance and the appeals board were not connected, and there was no mechanism to connect them. So how can you review a project when your only application, I'm the first person to mention this tonight, when the only application was for the site plan ordinance, and here you have hanging out here a land use ordinance that's not attached in any way. So Ed Barrer, our attorney, offered to withdraw his application and then work back through the process as soon as the applications could be either application singular or both ordinances could be connected through applications, and we could come back to you with maybe some enhancements to our projects. You know, we did listen to the abutters, and there were findings, and we would pay attention to those findings. But there has to be a way to apply for more than just the site plan ordinance. You have to also apply for the land use ordinance. So that's something that needs to be connected before we can come back in, I believe, and finish our process. So we will be before the town of Tremont as soon as town of Tremont fixes this glitch. It isn't something to be overlooked. It's something that the attorney should be able to take care of. He was in on that Zoom that night we went to the appeals board. So that's one thing. The second thing is until this is fixed, what are we living with? In other words, what ordinances apply? What does the board think? I mean, to me, it's status quo. Whatever's out there is what we march to. Those 2 ordinances are what we march to. But I'm not sure of that. It is very confusing. So if I was to bring you an application today, I'm not sure what I'd write in the blanks. But I'm ready to bring it in. I just don't know what to say, because it is mixed up. And the third thing, and I'm sorry, Kevin, but you're in a butter. You've opposed these projects all along. I'm respectfully asking you to step down from this vote tonight. I think it's an honorable thing to do. Your wife did it through every bit of the planning board process, and I respect her for it. It's time for Kevin to step down in this instant. He's too combined into this process. He's written letters against this project. He's an abutter against this project. He shouldn't be voting on this tonight. It's just bad business. Thank you.
Thanks for all your advice, Jeff, but I'm not aware of being in a butter to an ordinance.
Jeff, you're muted there, so we can't hear you on the I think Chris has to unmute or some sort. Okay, now you're unmuted, it shows.
He's in a butter to a project. The project is being called out front and center. And you can't, we're the elephant in the room right now if you can't talk about us, because Mark's letter goes there. It talks about campgrounds. We've been before them for 8 months trying to get through this process, and I don't know what the process is for tomorrow all the way through to May. I don't think that you guys have discussed that tonight as to what an applicant does that needs to come before this board, including the other campground, because you've got a site plan ordinance and you've got a land use ordinance with no way, zero way to apply for the land use ordinance. So whether it's Pointy Head that needs to come right back in, or it's the new campground off Kellytown, I don't know how they do it. And you need to take that piece so that business can go on.
Now, once again, like, correct me if I'm wrong, Mark or Chris, for saying this, but I believe that until anything is passed at town meeting, then everything would be as is. Am I correct on that?
Well, I believe Jesse has a way to link the two ordinances, which would satisfy what Jeff is talking about. Is that correct, Jesse?
Yes, there's now a planning board application. And that will go before the planning board and they will review both ordinances. If the project triggers both, which 99% of projects do trigger site plan, the way the site plan is set up. So they'll just have to review the standards in land use that apply to the project and the standards in site plan that apply to the project. So they'll just have to go through each set of performance standards, one after the other. But the application is right on the website. It says planning board application.
Yes, Mike. Thank you, Jesse.
So
Thank you, Jesse.
it's my understanding that if we're going to work to work on these changes, if you will, that we don't really need to do a moratorium right now. Moratorium is not benefiting us in any way. That wouldn't come till May, and by then we should have this all resolved. I think we're just wasting time and wasting applicants' time. I mean, this is definitely not fair to anybody who is applying or plans on applying, especially if they're planning on putting a campground in.
All right, James.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to get some clarification as how this process unfolds. As you can understand, every step, every ring in the ladder costs money and time. And so we're working on what we consider to be the rules and of the land use ordinance and everything. We're trying to go by, by the rules. If we end up changing down the road, how does that affect me? We can't continue to move forward and then wonder if the rug will get pulled out from behind us or under us in a short period. So we just want to be clear that we're able to move forward and apply underneath the current set guidelines. And then if things come later, it will not affect what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, would Mark or Jesse be best to answer that? Chris, which one would you say?
Jesse wants to.
I would go with Jesse.
Okay, yeah.
Thanks, Chris.
So when an application is pending, the planning board will review the current ordinance. Once it's been received and they have started their review, they will proceed with the ordinance that was enacted at the time that it was received. They would not switch in the middle if it was in the middle of, if it was mid-review, they wouldn't switch out and go with new standards. And then once it's completed its review, any proposed amendments down the road would have to meet the current standards unless there was some issue that was grandfathered. Hard to say what that would be. But going forward for any amendments, or if they were wanted to enlarge the campground, it may need to follow any new standards. But as for right now, it would be what is currently approved by the town while they're in that review procedure.
Okay, thank you, Jesse. That clears it up for me as well. Thank you.
I'm gonna make a motion that we take no action on enacting a campground moratorium ordinance.
Jamie,
Yes.
can I would respectfully suggest a motion to take no action would be an unusual motion. Typically, it's if you want to take no action, then just take no action.
Yeah. So if I hear no second, then this motion will die with a lack of second.
I think Howdy missed that one.
Okay.
What was that? I was
I
at the right.
I made a motion to take no action on a campground moratorium ordinance.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to take no action on a campground moratorium. Is there any discussion?
I just want to get this clear. This is a motion to do nothing? Is that correct?
Mike?
Yeah, it is.
I didn't know we could make a motion to do nothing.
I didn't know you could vote.
Well,
Nice, Mike.
Mackenzie?
So the moratorium doesn't happen until May, if it happens. So that doesn't affect anything that's happening right now. In the meantime, we will get with the attorney and the planning board and whatever and try to fix everything that's broken in this case, right? Is that so far I'm on board?
Yes.
Okay, so if a moratorium happens in May, whoever wants to do whatever, campground, because that seems to be the hot topic tonight, can still do what they want. Right?
Yes. Correct?
So,
Am I correct? Jesse's nodding his head, so yes.
okay,
I believe that's what I've gotten out of it. Yep.
so why does it hurt? I know this is unpopular, but to do the moratorium in May, like, why is that bad?
I mean, there's lots of different opinions. I haven't spoke really on this at all yet, but I don't believe in putting a moratorium on it. I think that, I don't want to stop the chance of business going in and, people conducting business. If this takes a long period of time to iron out, the differences in all of the rules, then so be it. But in the meantime, I don't think it should slow down people being able to do business. And but also the same thing, I would just say that we, I would take no motion on, I'd take no action, which would, not need a motion or anything is what my opinion is.
Okay. I just want to make sure I understand it both ways. And I think I'm fine with that as long as whatever is broken is in the process of getting fixed, then maybe a moratorium isn't necessary.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I agree with you and maybe no action or no moratorium.
Okay.
I just wanted to have that on the record, that was no action. That's why I made the motion.
All right. So it's been moved and seconded, and we are, I think, discussion is all set. Vote is for yes would be Howdy,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Mackenzie.
We're voting on no moratorium, right?
No, the motion was to do nothing. Am I correct on that?
To take no action on the campground moratorium ordinance.
Okay, yes.
Okay, Kevin,
I'm gonna listen to all my unsolicited advice and I will abstain.
okay. Kevin abstains, and I will vote yes as well. All right. That is the end of that discussion. All right, the next thing on the agenda is the real estate property discussion of possible uses for property located tax map 14 lot 6. It's the former McCaffrey Hutchins lumberyard. And Chris, would you like to kind of take the lead on, explain how we've gotten to this discussion, and then go from there?
Yes, absolutely. So a few months ago, I was approached by Misha Maitar and about just asking if the town might be interested in applying for a land and water conservation fund grant. I want to be clear, she was not saying we should or shouldn't. She was just making me aware of the grant program. The grant program offers $500,000 grants, 50% matching grants with a cap of $500,000 for the acquisition of real property that will be forever used for recreational purposes. Just as an example, the ball fields behind the school were purchased through this program. And so it's something that the town has done in the past. And so since I have been here, there's been discussion about what's going to happen at the McCaffrey and Hutchins lumberyard. Clearly, its current use is not the perfect ideal use for this property, and it would be great if something could happen there. Whether that something is a viable business, whether that something is a town park, whether that something is a public safety complex, or something else entirely, is I certainly am expressing no opinion, but I've certainly heard plenty of people say it would be great if something could happen there that is more than what is currently happening there, which, as far as I understand it, is RV and boat storage. And so the land acquisition discussions are permitted to happen in executive session. And so I brought this to you a little while ago in executive session. The reason it is permitted for executive session is so that the bargaining position of the town, if you were to go pursue an offer on this, would not be damaged by the public disclosure of information in advance. However, as part of the grant process, if you are interested in pursuing this, you do need to demonstrate that there is significant public interest in this project. And so the grant maker, the Land and Water Conservation Fund, would certainly want to see something along the lines of a task force, a visioning group, some kind of town committee that would be there to help shape the vision for what is going to happen there. So I think there should, and it is in the best interest of the town to have a very public process there. I have shared all of this with Les McEachran, the current owner of the property. He has shared with me that he does have a tenant on the property who's going to try to make a go at a business this summer, and he has an agreement with that tenant, an informal agreement with the tenant, that if in the meantime he receives an offer for the property, that he's going to give that tenant the chance to match the offer. And so I think that there is going to be some kind of business activity there. As I said in my memo, I don't fully understand all the details, so I don't want to try to get into trying to describe something that I don't understand. If you are interested in pursuing the grant, it's the applications are typically due at the end of every May. It's an annual grant. And so the timetable would definitely not be possible to submit for May 2021 because of the that public input process that I described. But you could, if you got started around now, position yourself well to apply in May 2022. And of course, with all of this, there's also been the ongoing discussion alluded to earlier in tonight's meeting about the public safety building. And as part of the conversation, the idea has been raised to parcel off part of the property and designate it for a public safety purpose, and then another part of it for recreational uses. That would be permitted through the grant, but the grant would only be able to fund the recreational aspect of it. You also asked me to research just other grant opportunities for public safety. That is the memo that was in your packet. And as I said earlier, it could take me, I could spend months and months just wading through all the grants that are out there in the world. And I am certainly not an expert to do that. If you were very interested in continuing to pursue grants, that we could contract out with someone to help do that research for us, or we could tap into other community experts like Keith Higgins on grants that are related to, the fire department in that case. So with that, I think I'll.
Sorry to interrupt you for just a second, but my laptop is about to die, so I'm just gonna spin it around. If you see it, you can keep speaking, but
Okay.
I'll try to get it plugged in because it is there. So.
All right. Well, I'll wrap up there and just take any questions from the board.
Okay, Mark, go ahead.
Just maybe help your conversation out here a little bit. Heard public safety building, that's in the harbor shoreland zone. Our land use ordinance doesn't allow governmental and institutional uses in that zone. That's all I had to say.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Keith, what are your thoughts on the idea?
Who invited Mark? Oh, sorry. Well, first of all, I'll say the fire department and the board of directors have identified buildings or areas within the community and this particular building or this particular location is not one of those. I think this Jamie or someone mentioned having a workshop, and I think that would be pretty beneficial, but this area I think could have some community use or business use, but it seems like a pretty high rent district to park a bunch of trucks with 8,000 gallons of water 24 hours a day. That's my opinion.
Yeah, when it was first brought before us, I mean, initially I thought it was a great idea to look at it at least and see. I mean, if there's grant money out there to fund this, then what better place as far as the location wise is, between the town office and close to the school, and it's just naturally kind of a, I guess, town center or whatever you would like to call it, for a public safety building, and whether that be fire department, ambulance, maybe I guess in my own mind I thought of a spot for police to, they could use an office there or of some sorts, and basically make a safety complex out of it. And I'm not sold on just the location being, especially with it waterfront, like you're saying, Keith. It's not something that you need to be waterfront, but also, I don't want to see it sit there vacant forever. And if someone steps up and sets up a business there, then that'd be great. So it wasn't just empty buildings, but I do think that the location, like as far as in the center of town there, or in the center, I should say, of the town office and the school, and that is appealing to me. Anybody else on the board have any thoughts on it? Kevin, you're muted, I believe.
I think if we can get a business in there that can make a go of it, I think that's the best case scenario.
Yes, yeah, I agree for sure.
I guess that being said, I think we ought to basically, I don't think we need to take any action on it at this point, as long as it looks like it's going to be used for business.
I agree.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I do agree as well. I think that we should table it and see what happens this summer, and if there's nothing, if something doesn't happen, then we'll talk about it again in the fall. Misha Maitar is here and would like to speak.
I'll just say a couple words. That seems like very sensible timing in terms of the grant opportunity that I had wanted to make sure that the town was aware of. The Land and Water Conservation Fund is like a traditional grant program that's been around for a long time for recreation projects, but it recently received a significant influx of money. So it's become maybe more of a resource for our towns than it has been in the past. So I just wanted to make sure that the town of Tremont was aware. With regards to the McEachern and Hutchins lot, which has just been discussed, over many years, as something the town might be interested in, but frankly, for any other projects, it requires a pre-application meeting by October 30th of each year. So really, that's what you want to be thinking about, is if this project or any other recreation project in town that you could use funding for, is of interest, you want to be thinking about it kind of in September, October to start the conversation with the grant maker, and then you get to work over the whole winter until May to make an application. So it's not urgent right now. It would have been urgent in October if you were this past October if you were interested. So
Misha, can I ask a quick clarification?
sure.
In an email with Doug Beck, I asked if the pre-application site visit that we did for McEachern and Hutchins, he said that would be valid for several years.
That might work that way. I would suggest reconnecting with Doug Beck, who works for the state of Maine. Is kind of it's a federal grant program. I would suggest reconnecting with him in the fall if there are projects that you wanted to bring forward, even if it is this one. But yeah, there's no urgency with that program, and Maine Coast Heritage Trust is certainly interested in partnering with the town if you should be interested in some kind of open space recreation town park there. But we have no interest in pushing in that direction. And frankly, if there are other community access park type projects in other places in town, we're interested in that too. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, is everybody under the same, we just don't take any action for right now, and we'll talk about it maybe the end of the summer and see what happens down there. Yep. Okay. Sounds good. We are on to D, which is town election and town meeting. Chris, what do you have for an idea this year? Last year definitely did not work, so I'm not going to say a word this time.
Well, I will say we got our budget approved, so in that sense it worked, but I would prefer not to repeat the experience.
Yes.
So I've laid out a few different options in your memo with a recommendation for a drive-in town meeting at MDI High School. I don't want to belabor the whole thing that's already in your memo.
Yeah.
I would just say that the towns of Mount Desert and Bar Harbor have both done this, and so it's, we aren't reinventing the wheel here. I think that it would be, certainly unconventional, and I certainly don't want to take away anyone's sense of the the importance of town meeting. I also strongly believe in the importance of town meeting. I just want to try to find a way to have it safely, where folks can continue to express their their civic duty without creating an event where COVID-19 is likely to spread.
Yeah, and I think from what I heard, I was very skeptical on the drive-through idea. I didn't think that would work in a million years, but obviously we've never done it, so we're all just trying it. And from what I've heard, it worked very well. So they pulled it off very well. The only thing that I could see for a concern would be people wanting it in town. And is there any way you think that we could have it? I know cost-wise it's going to be more, but like say the school parking lot, do you think between there and what's the lot on the opposite side of the road, the dirt lot called?
The Murphy lot.
Murphy lot, yeah. Do you think between the two there would be enough room to,
It all depends on how many people show up.
Yeah. Yes, Mike.
I just, by doing it at the high school, I don't want to discourage people, the older population, from being able to vote. You know, they're traveling, they're going there. They might not want to be, the idea of going to, another town, to another school. I mean, a lot of people are sensitive to this right now as it is. I think if we could keep it in this town, that would be better. I mean, I can remember, a couple of years ago, giving my Aunt Mitty a ride to cast her ballot. And, that's just, I just think that it'd be better if we could keep it in our own town. Just how I feel.
Anyone? Oh, Katie, yes.
So I just want to make it clear that the intention is to still have the election here at the town office. So votes can still be cast. The open portion is what we're suggesting to be a drive-in where you vote openly on the budget, but you've already cast your ballots either the day before or 2 days before, however we need to make these arrangements. I know it's not ideal. However, we're not in ideal times right now. And I feel that, all the changes that we had to make here at the town office due to the pandemic, people responded well to. This is just one more thing that we have to add to the list, or we may have to add to the list. And it is in May. It's not in November. They're probably, hopefully, going to cross our fingers. We're not going to have a snowstorm in May, right?
Yeah.
But your vote, the vote that people may be concerned about casting their ballots, still absentee will be available like normal, and you still can come to the polls here in Tremont to vote. So yes, it's not ideal, but we only have a couple options, and those options need to be chosen sooner rather than later, because time is of the essence. There are deadlines that the town has to meet, that I have to meet as a clerk to get things prepared. And I don't want to get into the situation as we did last year, where we have no choice but to do what we did last year.
Thank you, and I agree.
Katie, if we do decide to say do the drive-through town meeting and we get a green light, clearing bill of health, everyone's vaccinated, whatever the hell it takes to get us there, is it possible to still reschedule it in the town office? Or Chris?
So when you post your warrant, that change can be made as long as you make it in the same manner as you do when normally posting that warrant. The warrant does not need to be posted 60 days in advance. It can be posted it has to be posted 7 days in advance of that town meeting. So yes, we can wait till that. Because it's a town meeting and not a state meeting, or state election, you don't need to notify the state of any change of polling place, because it's your town meeting.
So basically, right now, we'd be trying to set up something so we're sure it could happen, but we do have the option of changing it with a week or more's notice.
I believe you. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I would just add that the warrant is published in the town report. And so that is published 30 days before we get those typically 30 days before the town meeting. And so, and Katie sends it up for printing, a couple weeks before it's ready?
I do. However, last year, the vendor that we work with was very accommodating to the last minute change. As long as you have that town meeting, the annual report available for people 3 days prior to the meeting. That's how the law reads. It has to be available 3 days before that town meeting. So it takes them normally 3 weeks to print. Last year, they were able to do it within 2 weeks of me submitting the last minute changes. Everything else can be done ahead of time. It's just that warrant that may change at last minute before printing.
I think if we were going to have an all clear, we probably know 30 days ahead of time anyway.
Yeah.
That would be helpful.
No, I don't think we have much of a choice, honestly. I think that what we did last year did not work that well. It did, I guess it functioned. We'll just say that, but it seemed like there were a lot better options. So, like I said, I'm up to try anything else, because that was the best we came up with, and I don't think it was quite as good as what some of the other towns did. So.
So if we schedule it Wednesday, May 5th, could we do the voting Tuesday before?
Yes, so there's also an exception in that town meeting that as long as you hold the secret ballot or vote, the voting of your elected officials within 14 days prior or after, you have to meet that 14-day window. You can't go outside the 14 days.
Okay. And I think we should do it. I think we should shoot for May 5th. It gives you like a Monday or a Tuesday to pull off the election if you wanted to. That way people know who wins at the town meeting or whatever.
So what is May 5th is a Wednesday, you said, Mackenzie?
A Wednesday.
Okay. So if you did May, and Katie, tell me if this would work better, but if we did May 3rd for that would give you like a day for the dust to settle in between, kind of.
So it also doesn't say, you don't have to have your secret ballot before your open town. There are towns that do the open town first and then do their secret ballot.
Mhm.
So either way, I say that the second Tuesday in May is what most voters are used to coming to vote at the polls for your elected officials. So if you wanted to keep that consistent, then that's an option as well. The only thing would be is in regards to voting, I'm not sure if it affects the school and how they come to all their budget meetings. Chris, do you have an idea on that as to if it would overlap if we do it before the normal?
Well, I guess my thought is I want to try to keep it as normal as possible. So if you're comfortable with, let's say, May 5th, then what everyone's used to is having the election the day before.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we've always done it. And I think that would work, doing it on May 4th, Tuesday, May 4th.
Yeah, I just didn't want to over stress our town staff.
Yeah.
If an
No.
extra day in between was better.
No, I mean, a week is not going to make a difference for us here. No.
No, I say we do it then, just May 5th for the meeting and voting on the 4th.
I guess I'd have to agree. Now that I've kind of talked it through a little bit.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
I will make a motion to schedule the 2021 town meeting for May 5th at the Mount Desert Island High School and the 2021 town election for May 4th, right? At the town office.
Second.
The time for the meeting, it's typically at 6:30 p.m. Are you comfortable with that?
For the town meeting in person, I mean,
Yeah, sorry, I meant the town meeting. I'm sorry.
yeah, the town meeting at the high school it would be.
Yeah, at the high school. Mhm.
What if we bumped it up earlier? I'm just thinking if it's, with the dark out and, I don't know how anybody else feels. I know I want it to be as normal as possible, but do anyone else see any issues if we had it a little earlier, like 5:30?
I think that would be a good
Go
idea.
to Bar Harbors last year, was it dark then?
It was not, but I don't remember what time it started.
Okay.
I think it was, I want to say it was 6.
Okay.
I think 5 to 5:30, you could have issues with people who are, working a 9 to 5 and then have difficulty getting there on time.
And then people have to be parked, right? Like they're
Yeah, that's
ushered into
true.
a space or whatever, directed to a space. Is that how it works?
Exactly. Yeah, we'd have to figure out, getting people exactly. And I mean, we would encourage people and all the public information about it to arrive early so that we can get, actually have the meeting gavelled, called to order at 6:30 or whatever time you set.
I think
Maybe
6
6.
would be a good idea. I think 6 would work.
6 o'clock, sound good? Okay. All right, it's been moved and seconded to schedule the 2021 town meeting for May 5th at 6 PM at the MDI High School, and the 2021 town election for May 4th at the town office. Is there any discussion?
Seconded, I'm sorry.
What's that?
Who seconded that? I'm sorry.
Kevin did.
Kevin, thank
Been
you.
a long time. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
No. Any discussion? All those in favor, Howdy,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Mackenzie,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
myself is yes. All right, next thing on the agenda is the dedication, oh no, sorry, I skipped over something, road work bid award, and we have our bids here. Let me bring them all in front of me. Hodgson Road, you want me just to summarize them, Chris?
Sure.
Hodgson Road, it was, there were 3 bids, the low bid being $60,345 from Dugas. South end of the Cape Road was, had 3 bidders. The low bid was $107,485 from Dugas as well. In the Dodge Point Road, had 3 bidders. The low bid was $23,655, and that was from Dugas as well.
One question I had about this, all the entrance culverts weren't included on the bids from Mr. Dugas. Is that work he's planning on doing, getting paid for, and then we go to the state to get reimbursed? Is that how that's?
I would have to get pre-approval from the state, but I anticipate that they will be willing to do that.
Okay.
And so we would pay for it out of Tremont's bank account, and then the state would reimburse us.
Okay.
I also saw it on RF Jordan's as well, Kevin. I just was looking through, and if you see that they have it marked, the same thing as an additional cost on there.
Yeah, I just wanted to be sure how that was going to be handled.
Mike,
I just wanted to say that, you know, I'd have no problem awarding this to Dugas. The only concern I can see with any of their bids is no additional gravel is included for grading roadway after reclaiming. We probably won't need any, but at the same time, I think that, you know, it's fair to say I'd be willing to award all these bids to them if they just, you know, take that right out of there. Take that line right out of there. I don't want to be hit with a surprise that we got 10 loads of gravel or 1 load of gravel to, you know, or Vinch minus or reclaimed hot top to grade up for hot top. I'd rather have them just say, you know what, we'll honor that for that price. We don't see that clause in any of the other bids. So I just want to make sure the town's protected on that, or at least give us a cap for it and say that it's not going to exceed, you know, X amount of money.
and I believe we have someone here from Dugas, if you'd like to address that.
Yeah, sure. My name is Jared Benner, and I'm representing Dugas. Mike, that was particular to the Dodge Point Road where that road's being reclaimed.
Yes.
And the reason that that was put in there was we don't know any more than anybody else what's there. So obviously we have to go back through after the reclaiming's taken and grade that road. But if the town deems that that's not sufficient, like we want more gravel brought in because we stirred up a mess, that's kind of why we put that in there. We don't really know what's there.
Just to me though, if that's the risk anybody takes that's putting a bid in, you know, to be fair to RF Jordan, Northeast Paving, when they put their bid in, they don't have that clause. So they're planning on some sort of allowance, we would assume, to cover that, or they're forgetting about it. But I think that's the risk you take when you put a bid in is, you know, is this going to be $500? Is it going to be $2,500? We don't know. And that could affect the prices a little bit. You know, if we get a $10,000 bill for gravel, well, that puts you, you know, RF Jordan low on this. And we just want to make sure that, you know, to me, I'd want to make sure that we knew what we were spending. I think that's a fair assumption. I think that overall, I'm I'd be happy, in my opinion, to vote to award you all of the bids for all of the roads. But I'd like this to know, is there some sort of cap on that? Where's the bar set? Is it this down here or is it up here? Are we gonna have 18 yards or inch minus, or are we gonna have, 72? I mean, I don't know.
I think that would be, in my opinion, and I guess I'm biased because it's my bid, and I'll admit that. On a road of that length, in the town being the people that have to accept the outcome of the project, that's not a call that I could make. From talking to Chris, the idea is to go through there and reclaim to 6-inch depth or something like that. So the possibility of stirring up a 12-inch rock really isn't there, hopefully. But in most reclaiming instances, you don't need to import gravel anyway. You're reclaiming the material just to chowder it up and to put it back down, grade it, and compact it. So that's how we looked at the project. And I think you would find, I can't speak on their behalf, everybody would have looked at it that way. I just felt like we have been in situations where we've reclaimed a parking lot and there isn't any gravel there, and you end up importing it, which, yes, it's a cost, but we didn't know what was underneath that pavement, just like we don't know what's in that road.
But I guess on another point, I wouldn't expect, without that clause in RF Jordan or Northeast Paving's bid, I wouldn't expect to get an extra from either one of them if they were awarded the bid. If you've got a clause in there, we could get stuck with any number, and we don't know what that's going to be.
I can tell you that that's not how we operate. That's not how we do business. We don't run around, and you guys will know if it's insufficient, and you'll get to make the decision. It's not a decision that we make.
Can we build in some sort of allowance? Can we have, like, say, I mean, you must know that if it's a 400 linear foot road or a 1200 linear foot road by 20 feet, it's going to be roughly X amount per linear foot to inch minus that road. Or
I certainly would. Yeah, I'll do that. I can't do it right now, obviously. That road is what, 2,000 feet long, Chris, something like that.
I don't have that in front of me right now. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So, yeah, I can definitely get back to you on it. I just can't do it. It'll take a little bit of time to just quantify that.
I honestly think we'd be all right with going with it. That road does not get muddy, soft. It holds up very well. I don't think there's a problem with having to have additional gravel brought in for that. If it was, in the spring, if it got really muddy and stuff, then I would have a concern about needing more gravel and stuff. But that road stays pretty nice.
This is Joe.
I think
from Northeast Paving.
Oh, whoops, sorry.
Sorry, Jared. This is Joe from Northeast Paving. I think part of it was said to have the road at 1%, and positive drainage could be more than 1%. I don't think he's going to end up needing aggregate. I think that's their concern, probably. But it would have been ours if we had that. We thought it that way, but we actually thought that you'd probably want to go 2% or more to get the water off the road.
I'm not comfortable awarding that Dodge Point Road bid with a moving target there. That's 2,000 feet of road, and that's a long distance. I mean, I don't know if they're going to put it 2 inches thick or 4 inches thick, and where they're going to need it. I mean, I don't think it needs any myself. I would pull it right out of there, but
that's why we put that in there. I don't think we need any, and I'm saying that we don't want the responsibility of hauling in gravel that isn't needed, right? But you are the people that get to make the decision if you want gravel imported. I don't get to make that decision.
I just wouldn't want it to be a moving target. That's all. I would rather have you say, we'll do this road project for 23,655, and we'll do whatever it takes to get it done. And that's when someone bids, I think that's what they're taking on. And I think, Northeast Paving, to be fair to them and RF Jordan, they don't have that in there. So I'd ask to have that pulled if we were to award the bid.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Jared, but I think what you're saying is if you're anticipating no additional gravel, the only way that there would be gravel added would be if we as a town came and said we would like more. Is that what you're saying? Or if you found some soft spots and decided you needed it?
No, that's a decision you would need to make and we would bring it to you. So
Okay.
if there's a problem, you're gonna know about it, and it's at that point, which, I mean, I think we can all agree that road is, for a gravel road in Maine, that's in really good shape.
Yeah.
Reclaiming, I completely understand wanting to reshape it, grade it, compact it. But like Mike's saying, he feels like it's, could be a, an open-ended thing. That's the same on my behalf as well. If I came in there and reclaimed that road and graded it and did not anticipate gravel, and the town came back and said, well, we wanted gravel in that road, without me excluding it, that's an open invitation for me having to haul in potentially hundreds of yards of gravel.
Yeah. No, I understand. And I think that I'm completely comfortable awarding the bids as is, but that's just my own opinion.
I agree too.
I'm fine with it also.
Okay, I'll make a motion. I would like to award the contract for all three roads: Dodge Point Road, south end of Cape Road, and Hodgson Road, in the 2021 road work to Dugas Construction in the amount for, I should have done separate, I guess. Hodgson Road for $60,345. The south end of the Cape Road for $107,485, and the Dodge Point Road for $23,655.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to award all three bids. All three roads to Dugas Construction. Is there any discussion?
Hang on one second, Jamie. I'm just going to do some quick math for the
Yep.
sake of the minutes. So the sum of those three numbers is $191,485. If the minutes for this meeting read that you awarded all three bids for that amount, would you be comfortable with that?
Yes. What was the total again? I'm just writing it down for my records.
$191,485.
Yes. Okay. Yep.
And
So for all three roads, I would just say Hodgson, south end of the Cape, and Dodge Point, all three jobs for a total of $191,485.
yeah, let me just double check that math, because then I'll regret it later if I don't do it twice. Okay, I got the same number both times.
That's what I came up with too, so.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any more discussion? All those in favor, Howdy,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Mackenzie,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
and myself is yes. All right, and thank you everyone for submitting the bids, and look forward to.
This is Joe again for Northeast Paving. For our records, could we have the bids emailed to us?
I can do that, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you. I'm gonna sign off now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Yes, you as well.
Now, Chris, we got the extra money. Could we consider maybe going on to another road to do some work in the near future?
Yeah, I think that just in terms of my own time and getting all of this done, I want to focus on getting Dugas all set up because there's obviously some administration to do on that. But I would, are you thinking that you might want to do that work simultaneous to the Dugas work?
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Maybe while they're down this way, it might save us a little money. I don't know.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
While they're
Yeah,
doing the projects.
let me think about, let me figure out how to go about that. I have some ideas, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
we don't have enough going on. How do you do it?
Right.
No,
So, all right.
I know what you're saying. No, it would. I mean, there's potential to save money and
And
it's
there's,
great.
and there's still quite a bit of money left. That's why
Yeah.
I'm saying.
Yep. No, I know, and that's another discussion that there's a fair amount left there. So, yeah, no, for sure.
I would
Good.
just say that fair amount that's left is in a reserve that can be used years in the future. So if you're,
Okay.
you can also save. That's also allowed.
Right. Okay. Yeah. No, I was just thinking while they're right in the area doing the work, it might benefit.
All right. Next thing. I don't even know what the next thing is. Dedication of town report. Does anybody have any ideas on who they would like to dedicate the town report to? Kenzie?
One suggestion. What about Janet Patton?
Yeah, it's the only thing I thought of as well. With she is signed off on her duties, or I think.
Right, she
is
has.
she officially now, yes or no, kind of, sort of, but yeah, yes.
Okay, that would be my suggestion if that's the case. I guess. Like if she's really, which I think she is.
I make a motion to dedicate the town report to Janet Patton.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to dedicate the town report to Janet Patton. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Howdy.
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Mackenzie,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
myself is yes. All right, next is the streetlight LED conversion. I'm gonna let you take that one, Chris, for a second and bring us up to speed on that.
Yeah, so about a year and a half ago, you guys awarded the bid for the streetlight LED conversion to Affinity LED. We've had a contract with them because of a number of factors, the pandemic and the changeover from Emera to Versant. I think they've just run into some unexpected delays. And so they've asked to postpone the contract. I think on the agenda, it says April 30th, 2021, but actually I should say May 31st, 2021. And so I have that addendum to the agreement in your packet, and it's up to you.
I'd say it's understandable. I get it.
Yeah.
I do too.
Under this year circumstances, if that's all that comes out of it, I guess we're doing very well. So, yeah, no.
I just got it. Andrew, you're with Affinity, I see.
That's right.
Are you working well with Versant? Are they slowing you down much, or is that part of it?
Yeah, we had some communication lapses, and it seems like we've been assigned to a different rep who's been a little more responsive in helping me get through. But the main issue is just the final stage in getting a lighting plan together for a municipality is having the utility sign off on it, saying, the audit is now reconciled with the ledger, and we have a final list of all the locations and exactly what we need. And that was where they got stuck, because they had a little trouble interpreting the audit that was provided to them. Affinity was able to help them through that, but then they had to schedule some work out in the field, and with the holidays and the change in hands from both Emera to Versant, and also between the two reps, I think that just slowed them down. But they've fully reviewed that, and they managed to throw one last hurdle my way. Is after months and months of delay, they gave a list of requirements for our electrical subcontractor. that was, exceeded the requirements that CMP has. So we're working on that, and that's the last roadblock with Versant that we have right now. So I think it's just a matter of a new relationship between Affinity and Versant, and we do a lot of work with CMP and Eversource down New Hampshire, and those go smoothly. And I think it's just a matter of you folks had to bear the brunt of us figuring out how that relationship works.
And when do you think you might be able to get rolling on it? Do you have a time frame?
So I don't have a time frame for you yet. The roadblock is just the getting the certifications sent to Versant. Our electrical subcontractor might just have to pay for one more certification, just a piece of paper. And then also I have a few questions for Tremont to clear up about some of the locations. And I sent that information to Chris, and it's just a fact that the real-time audit didn't have photos. And so I just, since you are a 4-hour drive from our headquarters, I just want to make sure that we send you everything 100% correct, so that there's no second trip except to collect our reusable totes that we take back at the end of every project.
And I see I got that at 4:30 today, so I have not had a chance to respond to that email.
That was a little late, but you know how days go. But it's just 5 locations, or actually 3 locations, 5 lights. 2 of them have double lights. So it's just a matter of you send me a picture of that, and I'll be able to cross it off my list right away.
I can do that.
And the good news for you folks is that Versant's review of everything reduced the quantity of lights that you have on your ledger. So you'll have some extra money in your budget, because we won't be needing to sell you the 78 lights. I think it was. I think we're down to 68.
And I'll keep repeating it just because I don't want it to get lost in the shuffle. There is one additional light that we'd like to look at having put in.
Okay, yeah, just send that over, and I'll have Versant take a look at that. That's a more paperwork situation. They just need to tell me whether or not the infrastructure is in place for us to put a new light. But our contractors, Wiswell Electric, they've installed all over Maine, so they're well familiar with any line work they need to do.
Perfect, thank you.
Of course.
I'll make a motion to authorize the town manager to sign a change order with Affiniate LED for the conversion of streetlights to LED that revises the project deadline from December 31st, 2020 to May 31st, 2021.
Second.
Then moved and seconded to authorize the town manager to sign a change order with Affinity LED for the conversion of street lights to LED that revises the project deadline from December 31st, 2020 to May 31st, 2021. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Howdy.
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Mackenzie,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
and myself is yes. Thank you again, Andrew, for taking the time.
Thank you very much. We do appreciate your business.
All right, next thing on the agenda. I'm not even gonna say it, Chris. This is you.
Yeah, well, as you know, I unfortunately will not be able to continue as town manager after June 18th. My wife has gotten a fellowship at the Maine Medical Center in Portland, and she's decided to accept, and so we'll be moving down to Portland towards the end of, or I guess the beginning of the summer, this coming summer. So I'm, have a lot of regrets about leaving Tremont. It's a really terrific town. I've had a terrific experience here working with all of you and with the residents and the volunteers and the boards and committees and the staff here at the office. It's just a really great community, and I'm, personally, this is the right move for our family, but it is a bittersweet moment for me. So sorry about that.
Well, thank you, and I want to thank you for all the hard work and everything that you've done. I think you've done a great job, and I know you came into this a little green, and we've definitely, seems like you've adapted very well, and everything has really really gone very good. So
Nope. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate all your work.
Yes, we wish you lots of luck.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Chris. We will miss you.
Well, you're stuck with me for another 5 months. So.
yeah. All right.
I'm sorry. Could someone make there is a motion in your memo.
We have to make a motion on that, really.
Sorry, just to accept it.
I'll make a motion to accept the resignation of Town Manager Christopher Saunders effective June 18th, 2021.
Second.
Does this have to pass unanimously or not?
Well, I guess I'll put it this way. After June 18th, I will not be in this chair anymore.
Okay.
So,
All right. It's been moved and seconded to accept the resignation of Town Manager Chris Saunders effective June 18th, 2021. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, Howdy,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Mackenzie,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
I'm voting no, Chris.
you voting no?
No, I'm voting no.
Yeah.
All right. Now, moving on to the town manager's report.
All right. Pull that up. Here we go. All right, it's been a while since you guys have met, so it's been a busy about a month or so. So some major activities over that month. I helped set up the ice skating rink, participating in the Down East COVID-19 task force, FY22 budget work, working on employee performance evaluations, preparing for the first comprehensive plan task force meeting, which will be this Thursday, and then working on the easement that you've requested between or next to McEachran and Hutchins for drainage off the Tremont Road. Some minor projects going on. I contacted Island Housing Trust in Ellsworth and MBI Housing Authority at your request about Pacific Hall, and I've got a walkthrough scheduled with the Housing Authority on January 29th. I notified all the nonprofits about the funding decisions that you made at your last meeting. I uploaded the new personnel policy and the fee schedule to the website. I helped process payroll while we had some staff who were out. Researched the public safety grants that you requested. We, of course, had the Christmas and New Year's holidays. I've been answering a number of cemetery questions that have come through, did the vending machine audit. I did my monthly check-in with our code enforcement officer. I substantiated some of our Keep Maine Healthy grant expenses as requested by the state. I renewed our elevator certificate. Our insurance company did a loss control site visit last October, and I've been working on the corrective action that they have requested. I helped the auditor finalize the FY20 audit, which I received a hard copy of today. The auditor is scheduled to be on the agenda on February 16th. Submitted the monthly general assistance report to the state. I've been attending the Hancock County Planning Commission meetings. I've been continuing to update the mobile message board. And if any of you have any creative messages to go on there, please let me know. Had those new security cameras installed at the town office, and they're working well. Communicating with the other MBI managers to try to schedule town meetings, see if we can coordinate to share the costs of the tent. I received the finalized wharf load rating from the engineers, so we can now post a sign on that site that establishes maximum weights. Had some emails with Misha about the fish ladder project, opened bids and prepared the bid summary for the roadwork projects. I participated in a law enforcement consolidation meeting, and as you saw in the paper, I'm sure, Southwest Harbor has now backed out, so it looks like that is back to status quo. Prepared for a status conference with Hancock County District Court on the Cousins 80K case. This is the town suing the Cousins, and that status conference will be this Friday. I had my check-in with Mackenzie. Morgan Churchman, the former owner of Pacific Hall, reached out to me to ask about what was going on, and so he and I had a nice conversation, and I'll include some of that discussion the next time it's on a select board agenda after I have my walkthrough with the Housing Authority. Participated in a webinar for a small grant for heat pumps. I may be asking for your approval to apply for heat pumps at the town office. Depends how our budget is looking there, because this grant is only a partial grant, so we'd still be on the hook for a substantial expense. If that looks like something that our budget can handle, then I will be bringing that to you. And then I conducted a federally required driver's license background check for all of our commercial driver's license drivers. Office staff selling the park passes during the month of December. End of calendar year payroll update and tax changes, reducing staffing. We had some reduced staffing due to COVID-19. No one got sick, but we did have some possible, so we were reduced for a little while. Did the bank reconciliation, planning for town meeting, delinquent tax collection work, getting the comprehensive plan task force members all in to sign their oaths. Katie closed out the November 2020 election, and she's starting to put together the 2020 town report. And then Jesse was doing lots and lots of appeals board work. Public Works projects, they helped set up the ice skating rink. They responded to a large downed tree on the Pretty Marsh line, but Versant and the fire department ended up doing most of the actual work there. Plowing, salting, and sanding and storm cleanup for a number of storms, big and small. Lots of vehicle maintenance. The John Deere did go down. So the case was in the salt shed for a few days. It did get a very thorough bath afterwards. Cleaning up a downed tree on the Cape Road. A pin broke on the snowblower, so we've been limited how much work we can do on the sidewalks, but fortunately there hasn't been too much snow. They're putting up some end of town road signs on dead end roads, so you might notice those going up. We've received 2 orders of salt and 1 order of sand. I'm sure all of you have seen that we have a temporary fix on the tent next to the garage. Shrink wrap is now on there to get it through this winter, and we'll see what we can do to have a more long-term repair going forward. And then unfortunately this past weekend, looks like a box truck or a large truck hit our speed radar sign. Somehow it managed to survive, even though it was in many pieces across the road. So I don't know how Troy brought it back to life, but he did. Our harbor master also helped with the ice skating rink setup. He reviewed the Wharf Harbor and Seal Cove budgets, which will be going to the harbor committee next week. He got the dumpster and the toilet removed from Seal Cove for the winter. Been doing some follow-up work after the annual hoist inspection. We've had a number of days of windy weather, so there's lots of cleanup related to that. And then of course, plowing, salting, and sanding. It's been dealing with some lobster cars that broke free. Did some welding on some town trucks and the new backhoe. Been applying salt to the ramps and the floats at the dock, and he was also out on vacation. So priorities over the next couple weeks, I'll be doing a walkthrough of the Hinton property. I'll be having my check-in with Mike tomorrow. FY22 budget work is continuing. I'll be continuing to participate in the Downing's COVID-19 task force. I'll be attending the status conference on the Cousins 80K case. I'll be participating in League of Towns meetings, finishing the employee performance evaluations, and then continuing to work on the Tremont Road drainage easement.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
I did want to mention too, when you said about the salt.
Welded on the new backhoe, Chris.
What? Sorry,
I couldn't hear you, Howdy, either.
Yeah, I'm wondering what had to be welded on the new backhoe.
Oh, it had a pin that with one of the buckets that we got, the twist wrist, it was one of the buckets was like hitting the arm if you twisted it too far, and so it was and so Justin was looking at a fix to prevent that, and so he was able to put in, basically weld on a small piece of metal that'll prevent it from hitting itself and breaking off that pin, if that makes sense.
So more or less welded a stop on. Okay.
Exactly, and
yeah.
It's much easier to show you. So if you want to see it, I can show you.
No, I was just making sure nothing broke or anything.
No. It was just because we had a sort of an aftermarket edition on it. It required a little bit of a.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what I was saying on the salt sand thing there, I've heard a number of people have said how well they've been doing keeping up with the roads and stuff. And I think personally, I think they've done a very good job. So yeah, they've kept up with it. I know we haven't had a ton of snow yet, but a lot of ice and mix and and all kinds of different weather. So.
Yeah, for a number of the storms, they've just applied straight salt, and it's worked really well.
Yeah. Good. All right, next is suggestions for the next meeting. The next meeting date.
I'll make a motion to confirm the date of the next meeting for Monday, February 1st, 2021 at 5 p.m. at the town office.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to confirm the date of the next meeting for Monday, February 1st, 2021, 5 p.m. at the town office. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, Howdy.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Mackenzie,
Yes.
Kevin. Oh, Kevin, your delete, your microphone is not working. I'm sure you said yes.
Too much background noise, sorry, yes.
Yes, okay, and I'm yes as well. All right, next we have an executive session. It's town manager search.
I'll make a motion to find that the public discussion of these personnel matters could be reasonably expected to cause damage to the employee's reputation and or to violate the employee's privacy rights, and therefore to go into executive session to discuss the employment, appointment, assignment, duties, promotion, demotion, compensation, evaluation, disciplining, resignation, and or dismissal of an individual or group of public officials, appointees or employees as permitted by 1 MRSA 405.6.a.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to go into executive session for the town manager search as read by Mackenzie. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, Howdy,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Mackenzie,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
myself is yes. Do we have a separate log on, Chris?
No, I think if everybody who's not invited in just logs out, then, and I'll
Okay.
stop the recording, then you'll be all set.
Okay, perfect.
Go ahead.
All right, we're out of executive session at 8:30. I guess just motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor, Howdy,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Mackenzie,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
myself is yes. All right, see everyone later.
Yeah. Thank you.